Good day. For today's meeting, we're going to tackle about the System Analysis and Design 9th edition, Chapter 8, User Interface Design. Phase description: System design is the third of 5 phases in system development life cycle. Now you will work on a physical design that will meet the specification described in a system requirement document. Tasks will include user interface design, data design, and system architecture. Deliverable is the system design specification. Chapter objectives explain the concept of user interface design and human-computer interaction, including basic principles of user-centered design. These user interface design guidelines describe user interface components, including screen elements and controls. Discuss the output design and technology issues. Design effective source document. Explain input design and technology issues. Discuss the guidelines of data entry screen designs. Then use input mask and validation rules that reduce input errors. Describe output and input controls and security.
What is a user interface? User interface consists of all the hardware, software, screens, menus, functions, outputs, and features that affect two-way communication between the user and the computer. User interface in information technology refers to the design of the user interface for software, website, or application. It's about programming that look of things with a view to facilitating usability and to improve the user experience. In simple terms, a user interface is a feature of a device or application that allow a user to interact with it. Let's say you are filing a company contact form on a website. Your user interface in this case would consist of any text box, a drop-down list, a radio button, and any other component which allow user to enter your data into the company system. And the example of a hardware device with a user interface is the remote control. This set of buttons and the way they are laid out on the controller makes up the user interface.
So, the topic is what principle of user-centered design. So, unsa din ako ng user-centered design, unsa din na or USD. So, USD is a collecting of processes that focus on putting users at the center of product design and development. So, moto siya siya ang meaning sa user-centered design or USD. So, principle of user-centered design. So, nato siya ay kuan ang user ang kuan kanang principle dai. So, user are involved in the design process from the very beginning. So, ang user kuno are involved in the design process from the beginning sa kinunhan. Then, importance of requirement clarification. No, clarification, the product team always tries to ally business requirements with user needs. Moto siya. Then, introducing user feedback loop in the product life cycle. So, unsa din na, the product team collects and analyzes feedback from user regularly. And then, this information help the team to make more users focused decision. So, moto siya. Then, ang last is iterative design process. So, unsa din ang iterative design process? So, the product team is constantly works on improving user experience. It introduces change gradually as it gains more understanding about their target audience. So, moto siya. Then, ang user certain design and design process. So, napadi ay. So, there are 5-stage design process. So, ang kinunhan is emphasize, then define, edit, then ang kaupat is prototype, then ang last is test. So, mo kuno siya tanan. Ang USD is can be applied for all stage of this process. So, mo to siya.
For our next slide, designing the user interface. Designing the user interface will help them to ensure that all interfaces are functioning well and all the system developed is organized with the same look and feel. So good interface design is based on combination of ergonomics that is organized and well arranged, aesthetic to its look and beauty, and interface technology. So there are 8 guidelines of creating a design of the user interface. First is to design transparent interface, which basically it is visible to the user. Facilitate the system design objectives rather than calling attention to that interface. Create design that is easy to learn and to remember. So for the user, it is good for a system that is, by looking at the system, it is understandable and easy to remember. Design the interface to improve user efficiency and productivity. Write commands, action, and system responses that are consistent and predictable. The second is they create an interface that is easy to learn and use. Clearly, all label controls, buttons, and icons that can be seen in the system, and for the users to understand, they are labeled. Select only those images that the user can understand easily and provide on-screen instructions that are logical, concise, and clear. For the user can understand the system, it is good to create an instruction on screen that is concise and clear. Show all commands in list and menu items. And it is also good that system that will be shown a menu items and show all commands and make it easy to navigate. The third one is enhance user productivity. Organize tasks, commands, and function in groups that resemble actual business operation. Create alphabetical menu list. It is good to create alphabetical menu list to navigate easy use for the users. Provide shortcuts so experienced user can avoid multiple menu levels. Use difficult values if the majority of the values in the fields are the same. The fourth one is make it easy for users to obtain help or correct errors. Ensure that help is always available. And it is useful that the user can connect to the developer to get help and provide user selected help and context sensitive help. Minimize input data problems, that is our fifth guideline. So create an input task, display event-driven message and reminders, establish a list for predefined values that users can click to select, build in rules that enforce data integrity. The seventh one is provide feedback to users. Display all message logical place on screen. Alert users for lengthy processing times or delay. For them to know something is wrong, they have a design can put alert to give a warning. Allow message to remain on screen long enough for users to read them. Let the user know whether the task or operation was successful or not. After saving or something that is an action that has been made by the user, it is good that to know them or to notify them that the operation was successful or not. So create an attractive layout and design. Use appropriate colors, highlights different areas of the screen. Use special effects strongly to give aesthetic look. Use hyperlinks that allows users to jump to related topics. So in a hyperlink, they can jump to another topic for the related topics of these systems. So group related objects and information. Use familiar terms and image. Remember the users can accustom to a pattern If the color is red, then it means stop, yellow, caution, and green, go. Provide a keystroke alternative for each menu command. Use familiar commands if possible. Provide Windows look and feel in your interface design. Users are familiar with the Windows-based application. Add control features. So this is the common features of the system. You have a menu bar, toolbar, command button, dialog box, text box, and toggle button. And control features, there are list box, scroll bar, drop down list back option button, or radio button, checkbox, calendar control, switchboard that is commonly used for designing the user interface.
So let's proceed with our next topic about the output design. So before designing an output, you need to ask yourself these several questions. What is the purpose of the output? Siyempre, mo-create ako sa kabutang na tayo specific na purpose para kanang makaibaw tawag asa na padung ng atong gihimo. Then, who wants the information? Why is it needed? And how will it be used? So, who wants the information? So, kinsay mo mga users nga nung ilaman ng kinahanglanon para asa din na. Manay ikaduha nga dapat mo ask yourself. Then, what specific information will be included? So, unsa may mga sud atong information? For example, kanang mga attendance system. Unsa may sud nga mga attendance system about sa kanang mga estudyante. Alang about sa mga kanang tao sa barangay if attendance. So, mo imagine consider ng mga specific information kadi dapat magpataka sa mga ibutang ni mga information. Then, will the output be printed, viewed on screen, or both? What type of device will the output go? So, imo po nyo consider kanang printed ba siya or kanang nara siya sa screen. So, depende lang sa imong design. Next, when will the information be provided and how often must it be updated? Do security or confidentiality issues exist? So, kanang updated ba nga imong kanang system or imong output design or kanang naabay kanang security or confidentiality nga naa exist ana kay isip po sa users kanang mas mangita dyan ng users og kanang secured ang ilang information or confidential ang ilang information. Mangita dyan na sila kanang mga specific na system or mga output design nga mas secured ang ilang information. So these specific questions will help you understand or guide you in creating an output that is sure and reliable. So first, you need to ask the users or your customers what kind of output they want to or expect. Siyempre, kung may customers gusto magpahiman mo sa ka-output design or a specific system, dili ka pwede imo ring design or ikaw rin maghimo nga dili nimo si Jai pangutanon. Kaya siyempre, ug ikaw usa ka customers kanang nadyo kayo mong kaugalingon nga gusto na kay kaugalingon ng design. So, kung usa ka output designer, you need to ask your customers first sa unsa iyang gusto expectations sa imong himuon o unsa gusto niyang ma-meet. Then, you can use prototype and mock-ups. When you say prototypes, and mock-ups, mo na gitawag na to preliminary model or design nga atong unang gihimo nga pwede na itong ipakita sa atong customers para makuha na ito lang feedback or comments like o gusto nila na i-add pa or i-change or kuhaon sa design nga imong ipakita. So this way, it can help your output design process or strategies kay ba naman ka kanang asa kadapit mo lihok or asa pay dapit mo uturon lihok mo sa pag-usay gusto nimo punan o makaibaw na ta sa ilang feedback or comments or kung sa imong gipakita nga design ug di sila ganahan imo i-change. So, may purpose nga nung kinahanglan ka mong tana sa imong users or sa imong customers. Then, next, for the topic is about overview of report design. Few firms have been able to eliminate printed output totally. So there are companies who eliminated printed output totally naman because many users find it handy to view screen out rather than printed output. Kita karon maangkon lang ta og dili, mas ganahan jud ta kanang technology na ang naglihok. Di na ta ganahan ng mga papel-papel kay samok and pwede sadto kanang mawa dili to reliable mga papel-papel. But printed outputs are also necessary in some situations. Ang printed output is also used in turnaround documents. Turnaround documents mo ni ang mga output documents nga i-entered back rapod sa parehas raw or line system. For example, kanang naa ka telephone or billing or utility bill. Pwede na tagong nga turnaround documents bill with your desk, with your check. So kung ibalik to remove portion sa bill with your check, the bill is scanned into the company's receivable system para ma-record ang imong payment. Siyempre, di man jud ta ng company or business nga dili na manginahanglan og printed documents, di ba? One best example is kanang mga billing system. Then, when we say reports must be easy to read and well organized, it means nga, like for example, isip usa ka designers, you need to create or produce reports that are attractive and user-friendly na yung mga styles, fonts, and images because try to make a report or an output na white card art. Di ba, way mo dawat o magamit ana. And one more thing, it must be a user-friendly. Kaya basin for example, ang magamit sa output or report design nga imong is mix, sagol tanan, batan tiguang unsa pa diha. Then you create an output nga dili masabtan sa matiguang unsa naman. So you need to consider sa imong mga users jud. So database program include a variety of report design tools. So example ana isang Microsoft Access. Gamit ni siya sa database design. It also offers report design tools like a report wizard nga gamit para maka-create ka report nga pas-pas og sadyon. So, ang character-based reports. So, bisan pag kasagaran sa mga reports are designed graphically. Naagi na po ibang system nga na-produce og daghang character-based reports. Kini character-based report is nani si dry fix spacing. So if mag-print ka character-based report sa paspas ng mga printers, makapadali ni siya. At the same time, inexpensive food. Especially, mag-produce ka mga large-scale reports such as payroll or inventory reports or registration rosters sa mga eskwelahan. Labi na gadjud og daghan kang copies na kinahanglanon. So, gamit ning character-based reports.
Next, we have the types of reports. So, when we say a report, it must include information that a users need, of course. Dapat kadjud nga ang sud sa reports na dito ang gikinahanglan ng information sa users. Kay kung wala dito, unsa pa may gamit sa report nga imong gihimo or sa system nga imong gihaguan, nagkapoy-kapoy ra ka din. You should also understand that a report with a little information is of no value. Okay, what if naay gikinahanglan ang user jawa dito dili to mabasa. Another is a report sad with too much information kay usahay libog ug lisod sa ton. So dapat naarata sa simple pero kompleto. So first we have a data report. From the word itself, detail, it means a specific or simple data report. For example, of an employee wherein it displays specific information like employee's name, position, regular hours, overtime hours, and so on, na producing one or more lines of output. So, kana bang murag naa didto ang mga specific details nga imong makit-an sa usa ka employee. Iyang pangan, um, kanang iyang position yan. Nako ipakita nga kanang example. So, mao ni sadya example sa data report. Kita ninyo dire nga naay store number, employee name, position niya, regular hours, overtime hours, o total hours. So, makita ninyo dira ang specific details nga dapat ninyo may bawan sa usa ka employee. So, mara is the example sa data report. Next is an exception reports. An exception reports will only display those records that a user wants displayed. For example, aritas employee nga reports. Ako, kadahay isip usa ka manager, gusto ra ko mo sa mga customer nga who work overtime. Kay og i-display tanan ng employee kanang mabuong pang user og pamong og kinsa to'y nag-overtime. So, mas maadyo og na exception report kay makita ra nimo dito ba og moingon kog ang gusto ra ko mo tan-aw sa mga employee nga nag-overtime dili na to ma-display tong tanang employee ang kadaghan. So, ma-display ra tong katong nag-overtime. So, man is the example sa exception report. So, makita ra ninyo dire. Man is the example sa exception report nga ma-display ra ang katong line. Example, ang assistant manager o clerk na nasa store number nga 8 of 17. So, ma-display ra ninyo siya o kinsa tong overtime. So, let's proceed. When we say summary reports, it mostly talks about total or overall figures nga wa na kinahanglan supporting details. So, for example, sa employee reports, ako for example, isip usa ka manager, I want to know the total sales for each sales representative. But dili ko ganahan display ang mga name nila, ilang position, or mga specific details nila or unsa pa rin. Ang gusto ra na is i-total or matotal largo ang tanang sales each representative. Dili siya pareha sa exception. Though same sila ang lainan, ang lahi ra nila, kalainan ra is ang exception kay mo display ang specific information sa kada employee. However, ang summary report is dili. So mao ni ang summary report, diba? Nawa na ang name or specific name kanang position sa employee. Kita ra ng store number, more ilhanan ka limo ni ID number. Then, kanang mga regular hours, overtime hours, then i-total na siya. So, ina na ang summary report. A user involvement report design. So, printed reports are an important way of delivering information because, of course, reports provide information needed with every users. So users should approve all report designs and submit each design for approval as you complete it rather than waiting until you finish report design. So, kanang as a designer, dapat magsikag ka na submit sa users nang para makuha ang diyang approval kay kanang mas nindot o kanang sige nimo patanaw ang process sa imong gihimo sa design imong gihimo sa users kay sila mas kaibaw kung unsa inyang gusto. Isip sa usa ka design, dili ka pwede magputra og kanang design nga wa kaibaw users. Kay syempre si man ang gusto magpahimo dapat sikag ka na approve siya imong patanaw dito o nang kinahanglan isip usa ka designer dapat sikag ka na approve kaysa magwat ka humanto nimo pero inipatan nimo na daghang then so maka-for ang prototype so preliminary design sila pwede nimo ipakita sa users ini pa kita nimo sa imong design Diya inapatanaw nimo ana kasi dahil sa jay gustong puno, sa jay gustong paon, sa jay gustong tang dili usa ka design. So mas maayo jud og communication sa imong users kay ang para mas nindot imong gihimo system or ang reports. For example, kay kanang gihimo po ng prototype og models para kay isip usa ka design mas nakaibaw ka kaysa sa users. What if you have a better design? Ganahan dayon user. So masindot kay app or preliminary design. So when you see your report analysis for mapakita na nimo din sa imong user ang ah, layout, ang field or unsa pa diha kita sa imong printed. So ang printed reports must be attractive, professional and easy to read. Kasabot na to nga part because ang competitive na tanan tao karon sa mga binata nga design dapat kinahanglan pa lamang kita sa users maengganyo na sila. A food, like a food nga panit tilawan lami na ana po na mga printed reports. But at the same time, sa jud ra siya sabton attractive lagi pero libugon. So dapat na jud ng attractive, professional and easy to read nga nag-uban para consistent ang imong design. So first is ang report header. So when we say report header, ma-display na ang or ang nag-contain siya sa report title o date or mga necessary nga information. So makita nato diri ang example ini ang employee hours. Siya ang general ending date is ini siya. So kada printed report makita na nimo sa report header kung unsay name ana specific na printed report. For example, sa another page butang dito og ang overtime hours dira po na sa babang butang. Diha jud na siya sa kanang babaw kay mo na header mo na ilhanan kung unsay name ana. Then ang report footer makita na nimo kasagaran sa purpose. So kasagaran ang report footer nag-include na siya sa grand total sa kada field. For example, kini sa employee hours, grand total na siya sa regular hours, overtime hours, o total hours sa kada employee. So, next some page headers and footers. So, when we say a page header, mao na siya ang nag-identify sa data. Name na siya, for example, sa kada field. Example, so, na mga page header, employee name, position, di mo mailhan o unsay name anang kada field. So, ang page footer, report title, and page number. So, ikapila na ni nga page. So, makita nimo o kanang kapila na na siya. So, page 1. So, muna ang page footer. Next is ang column heading alignment. So, malangkot ni siya sa report design principles ang column heading alignment. It talks about column heading alignment options. So, for example, hindi siya store number. Asa ni siya kilid ba sa tunga o ba sa right? Kuha na siya format. Diba? Next is ang column spacing. You should space columns of information carefully. A crowded report is hard to read. So, dapat na siya spacing nga. Kanang specific spacing nga tanan. Kay, kung ara na po ng kadugol, diba, like na position ara ng kadugol dito sa employee, murang magkabuag siya na siya. Dili na siya ni. Next is ang field order. Should be displayed in group chronological order. Dapat ang nag-should na ang sa kay kibali maunay ID. Siya mo sunod ang name and dili na pwede baylo kay maglibog siya ang users. For example, yung store number, mo ni ang mga identifier. So, dapat ana ang field order. Dapat mo ng store number. Mo ni ang mga identifier. So, dapat ana ang field order. Dapat mo ng store number, ng ID, sunod employee name. Kaya alam nga, ang employee name, yung ibutang ibaylo sa total hours na so, specific na order. Sunod ang grouping data. So, when we say grouping data lines are arrange lines in a group. So, for example, in identifying fields, i-group ninyo siya. So, ang identifying fields mo ni ang identify sa kanang employee. Sunod ang hours field, muna ang mga hours. So, nasa siya ang grouping data lines. So, ang repeating fields, so, naay mga part. So, naay mga part na na-issue with repeating fields. So, it repeats the store. So, makita nato rin it repeats the store number in every row. 8, diba? Balik-balik. Okay ra ba na? So, dili ang designer makapag. Dili ang users mismo. To ask the users what they think karon ka o ang agenda ito kung or alistan or nagay uturon. Then, ang consistent design. Look and feel are important to users. So, reports should be uniform and consistent. For example, sa report design imo example kini nagbutang ka date today. Imo nagbutang sa kinahanglan. Then sa next, diba page 1 siya sa printed reports. So dapat in page 2, ang pagbutang nimo sa date is same na para consistent siya. Kay diri sa page 1 imo gibutang date sa una sa ang the next page will put the date in footer o sa ubos para maglibog na ang user. So dapat consistent ang design.
As we have observed in today's generation, technology provide a great services to every businesses and companies for accessing information or communication. Output technology are those who will create any types of output, reports, documents, and others that can be delivered, stored, and retrieved. When we say internet-based information delivery, it talks about obtaining or accessing information through internet, wherein a customer will just, for example, link through a website. So, isip ka high-tech naman taron, so dapat magamit na natong pag-high-tech nga bisan pag-asa kong dapita o ganahan ko maka-access ang customer ko ato nga web-based. So, maka-access ko ato. So, example of this is a webcast. It is a video or audio media file distributed to the internet by specific companies for their customers, either live or recorded. So, daghan naman rong mga live broadcast, especially karon nga panahon nga pandemic, halos tanan nga nagamit na og mga broadcasting nga ma-access through internet. Sa una pa na nga panahon, pero mas nagamit yun na karong live broadcast. So, email. So, many of us know already the email, especially those who have works in any companies or bisan mga estudyante, because email has been a way of communication, a formal communication indeed. Rather, for example, employees can send or receive email via accessing a network. So, for example, mga estudyante mag-send og mga files adto sa mga instructor. Labi na karon nga pandemya, gamit na nga kanang email adto ra mga estudyante mag-send og mga files or unsa pa diha. Ang blogs is a web-based blogs. It is another form of web-based output. Uso ning blog sa internet, wherein it will provide any information. By saying any information, it doesn't only mean all about facts, but as well as opinion or suggestions. Gigamit isa siya para maghatag ng news, updates, ideas, or promoting products. So when we say instant messaging, it is another form of communication through internet that has been used by many companies to communicate effectively. And wireless devices, it is a messages and data that can be transmitted for a wide array of mobile devices. Example, message through nga magamit og cellphone, internet access like messenger, or any kind of devices nga wa nagamit og wires para makatransmit og message or data. A digital audio, messages, and video is a clip that can be captured through sounds, images, and video that can also be stored or transmitted to the customers. This can also be attached to email that can be sent to customers for specific features or examples sa ilang mga products. So, na mga naglangkop ni sila sa mga audio messages, images, and video clips nga pwede nimo i-send sa imong customers para ilang tan-awon. Then, a podcast is simply a piece of audio, a story, interview, or documentary series that you can download and listen to whenever you want. When we say automated fast simile system, it is a system that allows customers to request a fax using email via the company website or by telephone. When we say a fax machine is a machine that can be used for communication in which you can send documents or transfer documents electronically or telephone lines. So when we say a computer output to microfilm or COM, it is used by large firms to scan and store images of original documents to provide high quality records management and archiving. Next, a specialized form of output. Useful ni siya para gamiton aron mapadali ang mga trabaho or transaction within businesses or any companies or maka-provide o great services to the customers. So an incredibly diverse marketplace. So when we say a diverse marketplace, kay ba man ta murag kada tuig man kanang naadjunay kinabag-o sa kada business or companies para mas ma-advance, mapadevelop pa nila ang competitors. Dili na sila pwede nga magpabilin ra og unsa sila dapat mo enhance pa na sila, mo pataas pa para mas maengganyo ang mga customer sa ilang services nga ilang ma-provide. So, nanginahanglan dyan na sila og mga any form of specialized output and devices. For example, portable web-connected devices. So, makarani siya og mga applications, makahandle og mga multimedia output, and provide powerful multi-purpose communication for users. Like for example, mga phones, mga laptop, mga PC, or any devices nga pwede ka makagamit og mga apps or ingana nga pwede ka maka-communicate sa imong mga customers and others. Sunod is the retail point of sale terminals. So it will handle computer-based credit card transaction, print receipts, and update inventory. So naa ni siya sa mga transaction sa mga credit card, mga resibo, or maka-update ni siya dapat og mga inventory. Then sunod is an automatic teller machines or ATM. Murag kaybaw naman tawgon sa mga ATM kanang para ni siya para ma-process ang mga bank transaction or ma-print ang deposit or maka-withdraw ka og mga kwarta. Sunod is ang special purpose printers. So when we say a special purpose printers, it will produce labels, employee ID cards, driver license, gasoline pump receipt, or lottery ticket. So inig-print na niya, for example, kanang maprento ang resibo kitay mo magpagasolina ka, maprento ang resibo ato sa imong pagpagasolina or mga employee ID cards. So gamit na siya kaadyo ining special purpose printers sa mga company.
For our next slide, input design. Input design is the manipulation in the user interface where it controls gestures, voice, pointing that can be seen in the user interface. Input design, the quality of the output is only as good as the quality of the input. There are garbage in the garbage out, or the GIGO. Objective of input design is to ensure the quality, accuracy, and timeliness of input data. Good input design requires attention to the human factors as well as technology issues. Input designs source documents and forms. So in a form layout, there are heading zone, control zone, instruction zone, body zone, total zone. The source documents and forms. Dr. Jacob Nielsen believes that the users scan a page, picking out individual words and sentences. As a result, web designers must use scannable text to capture the whole and hold users' attention. So data in 3 screens. There are guidelines for the data in 3 screens. So for number 1, restrict users access to screen location where data is entered. Number 2 is provide descriptive caption for every field and show the user where to enter and data and required or maximum field size. The third is display a sample format if a user must enter values in a field of specific format separator. Fourth, requires an ending keystroke for every field. Fifth, do not require users to type leading zeros for numeric fields. Do not require users to type trailing zeros to numbers and include decimals. 7. Display the default value so operator can press the enter key to accept the suggested value. Use a default value when field value will be constant for successive records or throughout the data entry session. Display a list of accessible values for fields and provides meaningful error messages. 10 is to provide a way to leave the data entry screens at any without entering a current record. 11 is provide user with an opportunity to confirm the accuracy of input data before entering it. 12 is provide means of users to move among fields of the form. Design the screen form layout to match the layout of the source document. 14 is allow the users to add, change, delete, and view records. 15. Provide a method to allow users to search for specific information. Input mask. Use input masks, which are templates or pattern that restricts data's entry and prevent errors. A mask can manipulate the input data and apply specific format. So next is the validation rules. At least 8 types of data validation rules. Number 1 is sequence check. 2 is the existence check. 3 is the data type check. 4th is range check. 5th is reasonableness check. 6 is validity check, referential integrity. 7 is combination check. 8 is batch control hash tools. So input technology. So there are traditional, evolving, emerging input technology. Under the traditional input technology is the keyboard, mouse, pointing device, microphones, OCR or optical character recognition, MICR the magnetic ink character recognition, graphic input devices. In evolving category, body motion detection, advanced voice recognition, biological feedback, embedded magnetic data, RFID, advanced optical recognition, physical adaptation devices, emerging brain-computer interface, neural networks, artificial intelligence, advanced motion sensors, two-way satellite interface, virtual environments, 3D technology. So, input technology trade-offs. Unless source of the data automation is used, manual data entry is lower and more expensive than the batch input because it is performed at the time the transaction occurs and often done when computer demands it as in highest. The decision to use batch or online input depends on business requirements. Input volume reduction. Guidelines will have reduced input volume. Input necessary data only. Do not input data that users can retrieve from system files or calculate from other data. Do not input constant data. Use codes.
Then, security control issues. So, security and control issues. Number one is information system is integrated set of components for collecting, storing, and processing data and for delivering information. Delivering information, knowledge, and digital product. So unsa din na sa Tagalog, no? So tatagalogin natin, ang sistema ng impormasyon daw ay isang pinagsamang hanay na mga bahagi para sa pagkolekta, pagtatago at pagproseso ng data kuno. At para sa paghahatid ng impormasyon, mo to siya, kalaman at mga digital na produkto. Mo to siya ang digital produkto mo to siya ang sa pag-digital product. So, information system therefore undoubtedly play an important role in today. So, unsa din na, no? Important role in today kuno. So masakatuwid na ang mga sistema ng impormasyon ay walang anilangan na may mahalagang papel sa lipunan ngayon at palaging nasa gitna ng mga critical at infrastruktura. So, ang kaduha is the potential losses that are confronted by business and organization that rely on all these hardware and software system have therefore lead to a situation in which it is crucial for information system to be properly secured from the outset. So unsa din na sa Tagalog pa. So ang mga potential na pagkalugi na kinakaharap ng mga negosyo at samahan na umaasa sa lahat ng mga sistemang hardware at software na ito ay humahantong sa isang sitwasyon kung saan mahalaga para sa mga sistema ng impormasyon na ma-secured ng maayos mula sa simula. So, importante kuno sa tanan para kuno ma-secured siya nga tarong sukad sa kinonhan. So moto siya. Then last, information system security is a function whose mission is to establish security policies under associated producer and control elements over the information asset. So unsa day na? So ang sistema ng impormasyon kuno sa seguridad ay isang tungkulin mo to siya na ang mission ay matatag ng mga patakaran sa seguridad at ang ilang kunong kaugnayan ng mga pamamaraan at mga elemento na pagkontrol sa kanilang mga assets na impormasyon. Mo to siya ang security and control issues.
A question of ethics.
Good day, everyone. For today's topic, I will be discussing a question of ethics. So before we proceed to the sample scenario that will determine unethical issues involved, let's start first by explaining what is ethics. As most of us know, ethics is a set of rules that governs unacceptable conduct in society. It serves as a guide in our lives and helps us judge or identify whether our behavior can be justified. It will help us set and establish specific standards for our behavior. So let's proceed to the scenario. Jacob thought that he did a good job of designing the company's tech support webpage, but Emily, his supervisor, isn't so sure. She is concerned that Jacob's design is very similar to a page used by the company's major competitor, and she asked him whether he had used any HTML code from that site in his design. Although Jacob didn't copy any of the code, he did examine it in his web browser to see how they handled some design issues. Emily asked Jacob to investigate web page copyright issues and report back to her. In his research, he learned that outright copying would be a copyright violation, but merely viewing other sites to get design ideas would be permissible. What is not so clear is the gray area in the middle. Jacob asks you, as a friend, for your opinion on this question, even if no actual copying is involved. Are there ethical constraints on how far you should go in using the creative work of others? I believe there are some things that are similar to one another, but the only difference would be how does it became similar. In the scenario stated, the design of Jacob is very similar to the design of their competitors, even though he did not copy any code from their site, but the fact that he did examine it and still his design is similar to them, I think there are ethical issues involved. I mean, the work of others should just be your inspiration or your guidance, and if you know that your work or design is similar to the one that you see or examine, then you should just have to change it, or at least make it looks more different from the original. This scenario really involves ethics guide us to our every behavior and uh, choose up choose to act upon the acceptable behavior in society and such that it will guide us whether our actions are good or bad and right or wrong. In this case, I think there are ethical constraints on how far you should go in using the creative work of others. Jacob knows that his design is similar to the design he examined and he still continued to do so. So, there is ethical issues involved. Naanata sa part nga si Jacob dili actual copy ang iyang gibuhat. So, wa si Jai copyright violation. Ang ato ra kay sadyop ang iyang gibuhat. Kay bawo man si Ja nga ingadto ang design pero nganong ingadto gyapon murag pare-pareha. Kay moingon ta very similar. Halos sila nagkapareha. Usa na laman gamay na laman siguro ang part nga murag lahi nila, which is for example text na laman or diri nga part or ingani diri nga part or gamay na laman ang ilang pagkalahi wrong ang iyang gibuhat. So ang ato ra wata pugni o mogamit tas or mutan-aw ta sa work sa uban, sa design sa uban. Ang ato ra is kanang katiguta mo limit ug asa ra ta kutob mogamit ngana kay kinahanglan na po tayo atong kaugalingong originality nga ug may mga taong mutan-aw sa mga designer sa aming trabaho makain sila ba nga kanang ingod dyan ng kaugalingon original na wa na ni magisundog sa uban. Sa case gud ni Jacob kay very similar man ang iyang gibuhat. Kunya ang sa Japan ni Ja kay nakatan-aw si Ja, naka-examine si Ja sa design sa iyang competitors pero ingadto ra gyapon ang iyang design. Dapat unta ka ng ija tong gitanaw, i-examine noon sa ray mga kanang giunsa nila pag-handle sa design. Ingadto gitanaw ni Ja then naghimo si Ja iyang kaugalingong design. So that's just for my opinion and what I believe is the right thing to do kung ingani nga mga cases ang may tabo. Thank you.
Review questions for the Chapter 8 User Interface Design.
Review questions for the Chapter 8 User Interface Design. Number 1. Explain the concept of human-computer interaction for the HCI. Human-computer interaction describes the relationship between computers and people who use them to perform business-related tasks. HCI concepts apply to everything from PT stuff to main menu for a global network. HCI includes all the communication and instruction necessary to enter input the system and then to obtain output in the form of screen, space, or printed difference. So HCI is responsible for the output of the project. explain the concept of GUI switchboard. How does GUI design differ from character-based screen design? So GUI, or the graphic user interface, is a graphical object and techniques. A well-designed GUI helps user to learn and use the system effectively. Now that GUIs become universal in application package, user expect in-house software also have GUIs. Unlike a character-based screen design, a GUI combines process control and data entry, while on the other hand, a switchboard is an opening screen that introduces an application and allows the users to view the main options. A switchboard contains command buttons that enable users to navigate the system's tasks. Number 3. Describe the 7 principles of user-centered interface design. For user-centered designs, there are understand the underlying business function. Second is maximize graphical effectiveness. Third is a profile system users, or think like a user. Fifth, user prototyping. Design comprehensive interface. Continue the feedback process. Document the interface design. So these are considered to be the user-centered interface design. Fourth, the 4th question is describe the 6 types of user interface controls and provide an example of how could you use each type in data entry screen. So controls can include menu bars, toolbars, dialog boxes, text boxes, toggle buttons, list boxes, scroll bars, drop-down list boxes, option boxes, check boxes, command buttons, and calendar controls, among others. Control can be used as follows. So these are common controls that you can see in the application for the project. So menu bar, the main menu option displays on top of the screens in menu bar. Some software packages allow you to create customized menu bars and toolbars. So next is toolbar. A toolbar contains icons or buttons that represent shortcuts for executing common commands. The command might be navigation shortcut or can trigger other options. So next is command button. Command buttons initiate an action such as printing a form or requesting help. Dialog box. Dialog box allows the user to enter information about the task that system perform. Next is text box. A text box can display a message or provide a place for user to enter data. Toggle button. A toggle button is used to represent on or off status, clicking the toggle button switches to the other status. List box. A list box displays a list of choices that user can select. Scroll bar. A scroll bar allows the user to move through available choices when they do not all fit on the screen. Drop-down list box. A drop-down list box displays the current selection when the user clicks the arrow. A list of the available choices displayed. Next is the option button. Option buttons are radio buttons representing groups of options. The user can select only one option at a time. Selected option contains a black dot. Checkbox. A checkbox is used to select one or more choices from a group. A checkmark or an X represents selected options. Lastly is a calendar control. A calendar control allows the user to select a date that the system will display and store as a field value. The fifth question is define details reports, exception reports, and summary reports. Explain the concept of control field and how it used to produce a control break report. So a data report produces at least one line of output for every process. In an exception report, only those records that satisfies the specific conditions are reported. A summary report displays only subtotals and totals. A control field is a field that controls the output by determining its sequence and defining a control break. A control break occurs when the value of a control field changes. It uses one or more control fields and generates sometimes a special output, such as printed subtotals or total at control breakpoints. So the 6 review questions. Is to describe the various types of output component technology-based form information delivery. Technology advances have had an enormous impact on how people communicate and obtain information. In addition to printed output, the other forms of output includes internet-based information delivery. Millions of firms use the internet to reach new customers and markets around the world. Email has become essential means of internal and external business communication. Employees and receive email on local or wide area network, including the internet. Next is the audio output. Audio output can be attached to an email message or inserted as an audio in document. In addition, many firms use automated systems to handle voice instructions and provide information to customers. Automated SML systems. Some firms use automated SML, sometimes called box systems, to allow a customer to request a fax using email, the company website, or by telephone. The response is transmitted in a matter of seconds back to the user fax machine. Next is the computer output to microfilm, the COM. COM systems such as microfilm and microfilm capture the image of a document and produce film output. User that can retrieve, view, print the image. Computer output to laserdisc, the COLD. Computer output to laserdisc is a relatively new way to store image of a paper documents. Using COLD technology, a paper document is scanned and the digital image is stored in high density laserdisc medium. COLD technology also enables rapid information retrieval of formatted information. For example, as an insurance company, store thousands of papers, application forms, special software can read the document as data and extract information from a particular column or area in the form. Specialized forms of output businesses requires variety of specialized output devices such as retail point-of-sale terminals, automated tellers machines, special purpose printers, plotters, digital camera, and programmable devices such as television sets, VCRs, and microwave ovens that produce special output display. The 7 review questions for this chapter is explain the data validation rules mentioned in this chapters. There are mentioned rules for this chapter. So data validation checks includes the following. So sequence checks are used when the data must be in some predetermined sequence. System checks are used for mandatory data items. Data type checks does to ensure the data items fits the required data type. Range checks does data items to verify that they fall between specific minimum and maximum value. Reasonableness check identifies the value that is questionable but not necessarily wrong. Validity checks are used for the data items that must have certain values. Access competition checks are performed in two or more fields to ensure that they are consistent or reasonable when considered together. Lastly is the batch controls or totals used to verify batch input and might involve checking data items such as record counts and numeric field totals. For the ATP question for this chapter is, what are the main principles of source document design? So main principles of document designs are supposed to see how to create a good project. So alignment of related items should line up and aid in overall coherence. Bad alignment makes document difficult to read. Better alignment. So consistency ensures that each section of the document is visually consistent with other sections. Example includes switching font style or size, which can make document look awkward for readers. Switching from bulleted list to numbered list without this. And inconsistent spacing or intending. So it is important to know the consistency of your project. So proximity, the principles of proximity is fairly simple. Indicates related items should be visually arranged together. Or there is the contrast using different font size or style can help distinguish between elements in document that are meant to distinct from each other. Examples include bolded or underlined subheads. To highlight your text, use italics for lists or titles. Even things like bullets are used particularly for contrast. Like what you can see in my here in the screen, you can see bullets to distinguish partly for contrast. Fifth is white space. Everywhere there is no detect visual constitutes white space. So white space helps separate your text into disparate, discernible parts. So white space also helps to emphasize the key points parts of the document. So 9, the question in this chapter. So explain batch and online input methods, define source data automation, and provide an example. So using batch input, data entry is performed on a specified time schedule, such as daily, weekly, monthly, or longer. Although batch inputs is used in specific situation, most business activity requires online input. Online input offers immediate validation and ability of the data. So a popular online input method ensures the data automation, which combines online data entry and automated data capture using input devices such as magnetic temperature strips or swipe scanner. An example of source data automation includes retail stores that use portable barcode scanners to log new shipment and update inventory data, and libraries that uses handheld scanners to read the optical strips on the box. So for the last question of the questions chapter 8, provide for guidelines for using input volume. So for guidelines for using input volumes or input necessary data only, do not input a data item unless it is needed by the system. Do not input data that users can retrieve from system live or calculate from data. Do not input constant data if orders are in batches with the same date. Then a user should enter the order date only once for the first order in the batch. If orders are entered online, then the user can retrieve the order date automatically using the current system date. So use codes whenever possible. Codes are shorter than data they represent. Code input can reduce the data entry time. That's all for the questions, and thank you.
Discussion topic for the Chapter 8 User Interface Design.
So for the discussion topics, question number 1, some system analysts maintain that source documents are unnecessary. They say that all input can be entered directly into the system without wasting time in an intermediate step. Do you agree? Can you think of any situations where where source documents are essential? So, in my opinion, I cannot agree or disagree with the argument by the system analyst suggesting that the source documents are unnecessary, but rather I am of the opinion that the necessity of the origin document depends on the said business process involved. Since a source data describes that original record containing such details to validate any given transaction entered into an accounting system, those documents remain the only way to gather and record data. On the one hand, source materials are the only means of capturing and recording of various data. A good example of a source document importance is when a learning institution chooses to adopt an online registration process or system. Then such data can be fed directly into their system. On the other hand, sometimes, even when the source documents are not required, they can remain desirable as a working document that enables any user to analyze various data before being entered into the system. That can be evident on many occasions, for example, during interviews and observations, including other forms of fact-finding process. Many individuals may find it faster and easier to take handwritten notes, which in return will serve as a future data entries. With the current trends of the handled computers, computerized information data including the voice recognition software, outmoded keyboard data filing may vanish. Moreover, today, many nations globally have initiated initiated various regulations that require organizations and government agencies to ensure that source documents must be retained for at least 5 years. So, for example, in Australia, if an organization is being audited by the Australian Taxation Office or the ATO, then the company must give evidence in support for what they have recorded in their different accounting files or their overall ledger documents. So for the question number 2, some system analysts argue give users what they ask for. If they want lots of reports and reams of data, then that is what you should provide. Otherwise, they will feel that you are trying to tell them how to do their jobs. Others say system analysts should let users know what information can be obtained from the system. If you listen to users, you will never get anywhere because they really don't know what they want and don't understand information systems. So, what do you think of these arguments? So I would argue that the two statements with an extreme viewpoint are entirely unjustifiable, but rather I would consider the most likely policy lies between those two arguments. The first claim in my view contains some sense in it because information systems are designed for operators. Moreover, part of the system analysis is to make sure that any system that the organization is employing can measure up to the standard of the company's goal. If that is done, then it will also contain those users concerned. For example, if the operating system is not up to the task they are required to perform, then the number of production must be declined. Therefore, with a decrease in output comes the drop in the organization competitive advantages. In the context, the users will think that they are being told how to conduct their jobs by the analysts since there exists an interaction between the two as the users and analysts contain a similar obligation of serving the business. Considering the second argument, I would conclude that it is even weaker than the first statement, that is those system analysts should always be there to offer suggestions to users. Though it is true that users in various occasions are not conversant with any questions they want to ask, it is the obligation of those business-oriented um, system analysts to be there for them by helping them describe their needs. So, in other words, when developing such system that may primarily deal with one of user knowledge or the real user encounters, the installer applications or the setup wizard, then those organizations must present as much data as possible and as frequently as possible. So for the question number 3, suppose your network support company employs 75 technicians who travel constantly and work at customer sites. Your task is to design an information system that provides technical data and information to the field team. What types of output and information delivery would you suggest for the system? So the technicians who travel constantly and are most likely working from remote locations would require information that is ready and available at as what we needed. The following would be help the access technician information easily. Internet knowledge-based system. This could be like an encyclopedia for technicians where they could easily search up the information they need for their work from anywhere. Web-based system. This can help technicians ask or search for technical information online and also communicate and give out information to other technicians. Fax and email. A ready and available email support system and fax would boast information available to technicians. So for the question number 4, a user interface can be quite restrictive. For example, the interface design might not allow user to exit or to a window desktop or to log onto the internet. Should a user interface include such restrictions? Why or why not? In a highly interactive secured system, there might be some program which run automatically when a computer boots or starts. During some important programs running, it might happen that it may stop user to exit in between of various security concerns and sensitive data. This is the same as built-in security that is like workstation offers. Depending upon the security issue, whether it is high or low, one has security concerns existing. However, there is no such system which is completely protected and secured, but can be done by providing necessary support to provide security which cannot be easily reached.
The summary of our topic. First, discussion of input design began with a description of source document and various zone in a document. Second, the discussion of data entry screen design explained the use of input mask and validation rules to reduce data errors. And we briefly explained whatever the interface is. We defined the term user interface design, and we highlighted the importance of a good user interface in the web development context. We also talked about the elements to include in the user interface and finally listed some best practices to consider while designing a user interface.
That is the end of the of Chapter 8 User Interface Design. Thank you.